Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 Podcast, joining us as he does every Tuesday for Takes Tuesday. It's Takes Triano. Robbie Triano of SiriusXM is here. We have a whole lot to get to. Wackiness in the Big 12. Adrian Martinez, is he good sometimes, all the time? What's the situation there? What happened to Texas? Is Baylor back? All that and more coming up on today's show.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, Locked On Big 12 Podcast. Today we are brought to you by Upside, best place to save money on all of your daily tasks, food, gas, groceries, all of those things. Go find the Upside app. More on them later. Make sure you guys subscribe. We're approaching 2,200. Let's see if we can get there by the end of September. Less than 15 left. So subscribe. And we'll see if we can hit that number here in the next few days. All right. So Robbie, this was a really fun weekend of Big 12 football. I think it's already making us ask some existential questions about the league. We're just trying to find the rhythm right now. It's I guess we might not be able to, right? Like, it's going to be hard. I mean, sure, we're going to have some good teams. We're going to have some average teams. We're going to have some teams that aren't as good. But there might just be more in the middle than we thought. I mean, this is a hard league to sort out so far.
After our episode last Tuesday, I claimed Oklahoma has a gap between them and the rest of the league. That proved not to be true. I said that Kansas State's offense was bad. That proved to not be true against them. I proved that Iowa State may beat Baylor. Not true. I know nothing. That is what I've learned so far, is that I have overreacted to everything in non-conference play. And this weekend has kind of put me back to earth, or made me realize, what this league actually is. Like, there was a lot of things going into the season I was confident about, and then the non-conference play made me not very confident. And this week was just a sign that this league is going to be awesome this year. Like, straight up going to be awesome. Now that you see that Kansas, the team that is always in last place, is giving every other team troubles, that is awesome. The fact that you have on a weekend Oklahoma and Texas losing, that is awesome. You have all of these different teams that are now showing up. A team like Texas Tech that we threw just to be, they'll be one of the worst placed teams. They beat Texas in an unbelievable game. So I think that this league is so confusing because you don't know what you're going to get each week. But that is why it is by far the most entertaining, because that's why you have to watch every weekend. Because you can just assume 2 years ago, if Oklahoma played TCU or if Oklahoma played any of these teams, they're going to win. That is not a fact this year. That's not a fact. Every game can be in my mind, I don't think you can accurately predict the league this year. And it's frustrating for us, but entertaining for everyone else.
Yeah, I think, I kind of put it as the headline here. The Big 12 is confusing, and that's okay. It's really funny because West Virginia, is a team that should have beaten Pitt, to be honest, right? They have the mistake there at the end that cost them. They go and they hammer another ACC coastal team, Virginia Tech, who might not be very good. That division's not very good, but West Virginia ostensibly could be the best team in a different league's one of their divisions, right? It's kind of how this league works. West Virginia football might be back. They might be ready to rock and roll now, and might put some scares into people, win a few games. And that's a team now that we have to account for, right? They have the longest odds to win the conference, but would anybody count or say West Virginia might not play a factor into what happens, in this league, right? They play Texas this week. JT Daniels is really good. They depending on what happens with Quinn Ewers, the best quarterback in the field might be West Virginia's. And so that's what we're going to have to account for now. This is all across the board. We'll get to Adrian Martinez in a second, and Kansas State and whatnot. But Texas Tech, I think that my prediction at the beginning of the year was they might rack up one of the most impressive 5-7s that we're going to see all season. Well, it might be one of the more impressive 6-6 or 7-5s, right? I mean, that team's going to have it. They play, their schedule is bonkers how difficult it is. And they're going to lose some more. They might win a few more too. And they might end up at 6-6, and we might say, oh my God, this is a really fun and interesting and good 6-6 team in Joey McGuire's first year. Obviously, Kansas, a huge story here, really interesting for them this week. A 3.5-point dog at home against Iowa State, who kind of looked like the Iowa State team that we thought we were going to see at the beginning of the year, right? Definitely some holes there, definitely some inexperience that showed up. And, we have a team towards the top of the league, at least the ones we thought towards the top of the league. Kansas State, Baylor, obviously with a great performance. We just mentioned them. Kansas State with a performance that we wanted to see desperately, right? I mean, oh my God, Jekyll and Hyde. Talk about what a difference a week makes. And Oklahoma State is kind of waiting in the weeds. Obviously, huge matchup for them this week against Baylor coming up. And so Texas too, the one thing with Texas, and we'll get to them too later, is, how much is a quarterback injury going to derail their season? You hope it's not too much because they're showing so much promise, but it just kind of shows you, like, we have so many of these questions. And I think with what you're saying here is too often and we have the luxury of covering specific conferences. And so we can dive into this stuff nationally. People sometimes will phase out conferences like the Big 12 because who really cares, right? It's not going to factor into the college football playoff scenario necessarily. Right. So why should we always talk about it? The quality of football is good. The players are good. This isn't guys who suck just running around. Like, sure, are these teams as good as those top four? No, but who is? Who actually is as good as the top four teams? And so with that, like, this league is going to be one of the better, more entertaining leagues. It's a better top to bottom league than the ACC is. That's for sure. We saw that with Miami. We saw that with, once again, the entire Coastal. We saw that with Wake Forest Clemson was an awesome game, but not Wake Forest is an awesome, and Clemson's defense definitely has some holes in it. Like the Pac-12, I mean, is USC just going to turn, are they going to force 6 million turnovers this year? Like, I don't know if that's sustainable at all either. This league is really good top to bottom. They don't have there's no Colorado. Right? We talk about this in basketball too, right, Robbie? There's no Colorado in this Big 12. There's no Arizona State in this Big 12. Everybody's really good. The team that was like now kind of the favorite to finish last, West Virginia, just hammered Tech on a Thursday night on the road. I mean, what do we do with it? What are we supposed to do with any of this?
I don't know. And like, I can't even try and predict who the worst team in the Big 12 will be this year. I have no idea. You can convince me on 5 of them, and I would give you a reason why they couldn't be. Like, I thought Texas Tech might have been the person if Kansas wasn't. I can't say that now. And like, they have an offense that, like, at times you want to like strangle Donovan Smith, not actually people, but like he is very frustrating when it comes to some of his decision making. But like that's why I think, that kind of has to go with my next take as well. It's like, is parity good for the league? Because I think it is personally, but if there's parity, that probably means there isn't going to be a team in the college football playoff, because I think there's going to be a lot of cannibalization in this league. Like, I don't think that, like, the undefeated teams left in the conference, Kansas, I don't think they're going to go undefeated. And I think that if you make the college football playoff in this league, maybe you can do it with 2 losses this year, but I don't know, because, you have teams like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan who are just like very, very good. And I don't know if they're going to take the leap over that. But in terms of like getting interest around the league, I don't think there's like a league that has more awesome storylines right now. Like, you have a team like Kansas who like is legitimately an amazing watch. Jalen Daniels, Heisman candidate. You have all these awesome quarterbacks in the league. Like, last year, the quarterback league was terrible. Each team this year, I think, has a good quarterback, which is something you couldn't say. Even with TCU, we wanted to bury Max Duggan. He's been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league this year, and he was their backup. Like, you couldn't say that the last couple of years. Every team has a good quarterback, including with Adrian Martinez, that we'll talk next. So it makes you think, in the large picture, is it good that the Big 12 is so competitive that it can't be on the national stage when it comes to late December and January for the college football playoff and to have a national champion? I don't think there's a national champion winner in this league, and I think we can agree with that.
There's not a playoff team in this league. I don't think there is. Now, I think what would be interesting, though, is if we had the expanded playoff this year, and I know all the teams will be battle tested at the end, but like, we talked about Baylor, and I said, okay, Baylor at the end of the season is probably going to resemble the team that people thought ranked them as in the beginning of the season. It might take 2 losses to get there. It might be 11-2, but like, I'd love to see what an 11-2 Baylor that adjusts and adapts the way that we know Dave Aranda's does as a coach and his coaching staff does, and his teams that teams did last year, and they did from 2020 on. Like, I would love to see that team in a 12-team playoff. That's what it's exciting about the 12-team playoff. But I'm also very glad that Baylor Oklahoma State's happening earlier in the season, because from a national interest, like, that game still has it, especially after Baylor's performance last week and the fact Oklahoma State's still undefeated. I think it's very good that's happening early on, but there's not a playoff team in this league, I think.
And it comes to, like, how do you get interest in your fans, like, in terms of, like, TV and stuff like that? How do you get so much interest? It's when you have parity like this. Like, you can have Kansas fans interested until the end of the year. You can now have Texas Tech fans interested till the end of the year. And Oklahoma fans and Texas fans are always going to be interested. So the fact that 1 to 10, every fan base right now feels like they have some bit of hope after non-conference and 1 week of conference play. Like, even if you're a West Virginia fan, you may think, wow, we started off poorly, but you just came off a big road win. Like, that was huge. And then you see these emerging stars like CJ Donaldson, and you have JT Daniels. That can give you hope. So every team in this league, like, I honestly I hate picking games now, because I'm going to look like a fool every time.
It's impossible.
Even though, like, I had a good picks last week. Like, when we talked on the pod, I said Kansas State was dead. I said, like, their offense was bad. That just did not.
But you weren't wrong. That's the thing, is, like, you weren't wrong. Let's do this now. Let's do the Adrian Martinez thing.
Yeah.
Like, you said he's good. I had to put in here, he can be good at football. They lost don't get it twisted. They lost the Tulane game because they could not be dynamic enough on offense. And I think the frustrating thing for me, Robbie, is we talked about them taking shots. Like, they didn't take a bunch of deep shots. Their offense passing wise just needed to be functional. And that's all they needed, because the running game for them was so good. And, like, we didn't see them taking a bunch of shots, but guess what they could do on third downs? Or even in first, second, like, they could move the football with a passing game. Was it always pretty? No. But we saw it happen. Martinez, he didn't have to play like that every single game, but, like, he's got that in him. They can win 9 or 10 games. I don't think they will. They can win 9 or 10 games if he plays like 80%, 75% of what he did against OU. This was his best performance as a college player, I think. No doubt. And I mentioned this yesterday. I want to get your thoughts on this. Every single time a play had to be made, he wanted the football. He wanted to be the one who made the play. And it felt like everybody was a little too gun shy the week before. Completely different player this week than he was against Tulane.
Yeah, and after the Tulane game, I thought the blueprint was, if you stop Deuce Vaughn, like, you're going to win. And after this game, I think Adrian Martinez kind of understood, like, we were talking, he needed to take shots, and he didn't do that in terms of his arm, but he was, like, more confident when it came to him running the football. Like, he would just go, and I didn't realize how fast this guy is. Mm-hmm. Like, he is very, very quick and nimble, and, like, that's why that was my envision of what their offense could be, because if you make a defense pick, okay, Deuce Vaughn's going to go this way or Adrian Martinez is going to go that way, like, that is, like, how do you pick? Like, both are, like, electric when it comes to running the football. And that's what I envisioned this offense to be, and that's why I think I had more faith in the season with Adrian Martinez. And, like, obviously he needs to get there with his arm, but, like, does he even need to if he's this good on the ground? And I'm not going to overreact to this game, but I think this was a huge, huge, huge confidence boost to Kansas State. And, like, I won't say the loss to Tulane was good. Like, I think all Kansas State fans would love to be 4-0, but I really think that was a wake-up call. Like, okay, we need to do some more stuff here. And they absolutely are. This also kind of exposed a little bit that Oklahoma's defense isn't as good as we thought, because 0 sacks, four tackles for loss. They did not get to him. It looked like Kansas State's offensive line was just much, much, much better. But this was an amazing game from Adrian Martinez. And the thing is, the whole time we were worried about turnovers, zero turnovers this year. He is being confident. He's being responsible. And now he is seeing what I thought he could be this year, and that is be a dynamic player that can confuse the defense. It's awesome.
Yeah, like, they need him to do that. I mean, there are some games maybe where they're not, like, the Missouri game, they didn't need it, right? But that Tulane game, you mentioned the offensive line too. it's so funny because this stuff can be really week to week. They got pushed around by Tulane. And we saw a Nebraska offense that it's actually not horrible, right? They've moved the ball pretty well, Nebraska has this year. After that first drive, Oklahoma did a great job against them on defense. 1 week later, guess what happened? One team got pushed around up front, and it was Kansas State who doing the pushing, who got pushed around by, no disrespect to Tulane, but it's Tulane the week before, right. And
who lost this weekend, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is what makes this league interesting, and that's my question with Adrian Martinez. Okay, you don't have to be Superman every game. Is there a way that we can basically harness this and use it sporadically? Can we keep the passing game functional, right? Can we, while we mix in the running on the offensive side? Mm-hmm. And that defense, I know they gave it up a little bit in this game. Oklahoma did move the ball a ton all over Kansas State, but they got the stops they needed. They got the scores they needed. I mean, they didn't trail in this game, I don't think, at any point. And so the fact that you were in control, or you're never chasing the game, and you and I mentioned that too, like they can't chase games. That's not going to work for Kansas State. Mm-hmm. They can be explosive at times. It's just not going to work for them. Like this is what the team is capable of, controlling the game. And that's what I would take away from this. As much as we want to talk about Adrian Martinez, and he's a huge part of that, but like make the big plays early, get that lead, control the game, maintain scoring throughout. They did all of those things. And he was a huge reason why. He doesn't have to be this kind of guy. He needed to be on the road against top 10 team, sure. But you don't have to do that every single week. Can we get to that point, Robbie? Can we get to that point? That's the big question.
Yeah, and it's awesome too, because I think what we envisioned with the Colin Klein offense is he's going to do what he did as a quarterback and put it in Adrian Martinez. And we talked to him earlier in the season. He was like, Adrian can do what I do, but better, because I think he's a better athlete. And now I think we're starting to realize after that Tulane game, hey, maybe I should trust this guy, my offensive coordinator who actually did what I did and was super successful, was almost a Heisman Trophy winner. Like, I should just do that. And I think that's what happened against Oklahoma. And, like, once again, it made Oklahoma look silly. Like, they just could not tackle the guy. They could not handle him. And anytime Oklahoma needed a stop, Adrian Martinez just did his thing. And the fact that they have that 1-2 punch of him and Deuce Vaughn, like, this is why I was so excited about this offense, and I'm like honestly pissed I didn't have more faith in myself after the Tulane game. But like, how could you like be excited about that offense? And that's the thing about this league, that earlier it's like there's so many things in the season I was so confident in, and then I just let it go because I was nervous. Like I said, Baylor might not be good, or not be good, but might not be like a title contender yet. And it's like, what are we talking about? we should have just believed, and I knew that Adrian was going to be good, and he did against Oklahoma. Can he sustain it though? Because he's hot right now, but can he sustain it? But right now, I think yes, because he looked confident.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there with them. Once again, sustaining it. That's like all these teams though. All right, Texas. What the hell is your next one? So I'm not positive. I'm here with you. I'd like to hear your reasoning for this. I think once again, like that was the game they should have won. I agree. I think they're still suffering. Hudson Card is not 100%. I just don't see it. And they're really having to rely on those backs. And it's been a weird year for Xavier, where they finally caught a touchdown. And they've had a tough time getting him going. So like, I'm having a tough time figuring out Texas, because I think they really look awesome at sometimes. And because of their injuries other times, not just their injuries, but their quality of play too. They're just a really difficult team to figure out.
The thing about Texas, and I have a stat here that I found just absolutely fascinating, is that they just cannot finish games. No. When they start a game, Steve Sarkisian has this amazing game plan. They're off hot. They're scoring their first drive. They're doing the thing. But when it comes to finishing the game, I thought Texas Tech did a masterclass on wearing Texas down. Mm-hmm. Like the stats here too, before I get to the ones, they were 6 for 8 on 4th down. So that means you are extending drives 6 for 8. That defense is out there so many times. Donovan Smith threw the ball, 56 times?
Yeah, great point.
Like, that is incredible. The fact that they could just wear Texas down like that. And that's where I thought Texas Tech kind of like took control of the game very late. And here's the stat. So under Texas, Steve Sarkisian is 7-9. They held a halftime lead in 5 of those 9 losses. They held a fourth quarter lead in 5 of those 9 losses. They had double-digit leads in 4 of those 9 losses. So this is not just a fluky game. This is a trend. This is more than half of their games they have the chance to win, and then they don't. That is where I am more concerned about Steve Sarkisian's ability to adjust when it comes to this team. And yes, we would love Quinn Ewers to be back, but I thought Hudson Card, he can do some things with his leg, one leg really because of his ankle. He's extending drives. So this is where I'm like, Texas, what is going on? You're supposed to be winning these games. You have it in your hands. Just take it. But that's where I thought Texas Tech did it great. And Joey McGuire, he said it. Let's wear them down. I know we can do it. And then they did. And this is where, like, we know Texas has the talent. This is more of a, can you sustain the full game to win? And that's
Right.
where I'm like, it's starting to get like that trend is concerning. I still think Texas is a good team, but like, what the hell? Like, you had this game. What are you doing?
The thing that's interesting, because the numbers tell a weird story on this. They were 7 for 20. Tech was 7 for 20 on third down. So it's not great, right? It's 35%. You mentioned the fourth down. Look at the passing yards per play for Texas Tech. It's like 5 point, it's less than 6, which is actually pretty good, right? And then, you look at the fourth down conversions, how good they were on fourth down. They weren't that good running the ball too. Texas Tech just chipped away at them. They just kept, like you mentioned, Rob, they kept chipping away. They kept chipping away at them. And Texas held multiple 2-score leads in this game and gave them both up. Not all the way back to tied, but they took multiple 2-score leads and just couldn't do it. And so, yeah, like you wonder, like, okay, what is that a function of? Like, where does that come from? Is it still the same stuff as last year? This was one of those where I don't know what it was, because that fumble to me, like the end with Bijan Robinson, like really isn't it's not
It's only
the
his
problem.
third fumble ever.
Right.
When it comes to
right.
college.
That
was a fluke.
Yeah, it was really bad timing. And like, I know Texas fans will be like, well, that's just kind of how it's been lately. It's fine. It's whatever. That to me was not really the big problem. It was just their offense. I don't know what the numbers were in the second half, but they scored 10 points in the third quarter, fourth quarter, and overtime. And then they also, in third quarter, fourth quarter, overtime, gave up 23. So, like you mentioned, it's finishing games, but I don't know what it is that you identify with Texas that needs to change. Like, is it a energy conservation type deal? Are we talking physical conditioning, right? What are we talking about here that's keeping them from doing it? It's a really curious thing. And I also think this team this year is a better formed overall team. Like, I thought, like, because we're talking about second half. I mean, what the hell? Last week's second half response from them was fantastic, albeit against lower competition that you should wear down. But I mean, like, we this is fixable. I think this is fixable. I believe.
Yeah, and I just want to see them be able to adjust more. And like, I know that like they start the game fast, and I just want to see them like keep the ball a little longer. It's just
Right.
like I'm so confused because Texas shouldn't have these games where they have to be somewhat perfect in order to win. Like the game against Alabama, they should have won. And then this game, they should have won. Like, I feel like they should be separating the gap between a team like Texas Tech. They should, in those moments where it's 31-17, be burying them. I don't know how you don't do that. That's where I'm just confused. It's like, you're better than these teams. Like, you're better. You have the talent, and I believe you have one of the best play callers in the whole country. How are you not doing this right now?
Yeah.
That's where I'm like, what the hell? This trend is somewhat scary, and you just need to see this team adjust better. That is really what I think it is. Like, you have the talent, just adjust.
It was interesting when they got that field goal late too. It was like, oh, they're, to a point about them just kind of going away. Like, they didn't go away, right? They end up getting. I mean, you thought Tech kicks the field goal, you think the game's over. They go right down the field and get it. And it kind of reminds me, it's very, it kind of brings up the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl question, right? Of like, okay, what's the offensive approach? I guess when you got a guy like Bijan, you're giving him the ball as a question, but I didn't feel like they just did that. Like I don't feel like they completely curled up in a ball. It's just they just weren't as efficient. So it's a matter of conservation, right? Of energy conservation. I feel like kind of getting from point A to point B all the way through. And so I'm fascinated now because they've got Oklahoma. Let's see. I'm trying to think about who they have this week. I'm not sure if they're on a bye or not, but they've got that Oklahoma game. So West Virginia is this week.
Yep.
And it's OU. So, a lot of questions to be asked. You want to do Baylor next? Is that where we should go?
Yeah, I like Baylor as well. But I just want to give some credit to Bijan Robinson because I feel like we always put him in terms of Heisman conversation, and he's kind of just like been lost. He's been sneakily having like an amazing season. 414 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. Like, he's such a beast. Leads the league in rushing touchdowns. I just want to give him credit.
Over 6 yards a carry too. So
if it wasn't for Deuce Vaughn, I think Bijan Robinson would be one of the best players in the league. He still is. But I want to go to Baylor because this is a game that I was ready to sell hope on Baylor just because, like, I just need to learn to be more patient when it comes to this week. And the reason why is because I thought that Blake Shapen didn't show what he could do or what we thought he could do. In this game, I thought he was much more efficient. They got the ball down the field more.
They did.
And I think they just had more of a balance when it comes to their passing and rushing attack. And this is a game that I don't think Baylor really – I don't think there was a point in that game where I thought Baylor was going to lose, really, to Iowa State. And, like, you can complain, the refs, targeting, whatever. I think that Baylor is just a better team than Iowa State. And I think they proved it. And now that we've seen that, okay, they're starting to look more into form, I think I can have more confidence in them to push for the Big 12 title this season. And, like, you have these players on defense. You can get to the quarterback in this team. You have good offensive linemen up front. Like, this is a good team. And Iowa State, I think, is what I kind of thought they could be, which is not as good because held to 66 rushing yards. And if Baylor can do that to every team, like stop the rushing attack, like I think they're going to be very good because you think of the teams in this league, if they can hold Kansas State, this is very unrealistic, but to like, let's say under 120 rushing yards, I think that's a W. If you can hold a team like Oklahoma and Eric Gray under that, I think that's a W. So this is a team that I think there's a lot of good running game. Like I think in this league, I think the running game opens a lot of the good quarterback play in this league. So that's where I'm like, okay, if Baylor can do this on defense to every team in the league, like I'm very confident on this team. And Blake Shapen showed more of what he could be. It's an amazing test against Oklahoma State this weekend. It's a good thing that they are home for this game. But now it's time to like have more confidence in Baylor. And I think all of us were a little shaky after the BYU game, but it's time to have more confidence in Baylor again.
Well, yeah, I'm with you. I think we talked about the offense. They took the shots, right? That offense was more open. And look, they found some things. They exposed some things. I mean, the trick play they ran, like there's nobody home for Iowa State on that one. They took more shots downfield. I thought it opened up their offense. It felt like they could have won this game by more than they did. So I think that's actually a good sign for Baylor, which means there's more room for them to improve. I thought that they did a good job on Xavier Hutchinson. I mean, we saw the interception. There were like 6 guys around him ready, just, and they knew where the ball was going a lot of the time. And they lucked out because it was kind of a weird play where it kind of, I think it was what just kind of got tipped. I thought it was the interception or fumble, forgot which one it was. But they were all around him swarming, ready to go. And that's the thing is like, if this team takes shots, runs the ball, forces turnovers, and can hold up front, which I know I'm asking a lot of things, but like that's not too much to ask. They're going to be a Big 12 title contender. If they do those things well, they're probably going to make the Big 12 title game. This is their hardest. I think Oklahoma State is their hardest test to date. I know BYU on the road was difficult. I know Iowa State on the road is difficult. There is a guy on the other end of the game this week, Robbie, who desperately wants to beat Baylor because of his performances so far against them. That is Spencer Sanders.
Absolutely.
He has been money so far this year. Last year, he threw 7 picks, 6 came against the Baylor Bears. This is the game. This is the game right here. For me to say Baylor's all the way back as a Big 12 title contender, or all the way back as like, okay, I always did think that BYU game would spur them on to move forward. And they made the adjustments, right? We asked, hey, take more shots the last couple games. They've got the opportunity this week, and I'm really fired up for it. So that loss, I felt like needed to happen for them to course correct, for them to get back. I thought out of all the wins this weekend, I thought theirs was the second best in the league. I thought that win at Iowa State, you and I talked about a place where nobody goes in and wins. The way they were ahead for most of that game. They were in control most of that game. It could have been worse, in my opinion, for Iowa State on that losing end. I'm back with you on Baylor. I'm so fired up for this week.
No, I think this is such an incredible game. And what makes me nervous, if you're a Baylor fan, and technically I think I am a Baylor fan, I think I've adopted that.
Yes.
Is that Oklahoma State's coming off a bye, and that's where I kind of unknown and how this team would look, because even in non-conference play, like, yes, they went 3-0, but like, I don't know the quality of the opponent that they really faced. Like, you faced a Central Michigan team. Okay, you won. You didn't win by a lot, but you scored 55 points. It's amazing. Then you beat Arizona State, who did fire Herm Edwards. So it's like, what exactly are we getting from this Oklahoma State team? And this game is by far the most intriguing. I think it's one of the best games in the entire season when it comes to like what it could mean. So yeah, I think this is an amazing test for Baylor. It's good that they are home, but I think if you're a Baylor fan, you can kind of like take a quick deep breath, because I think that everyone was nervous about what this offense would look like, and I think it's much more balanced based on that performance against Iowa State. But I'm back in, and it's just like interesting if you look at the current standings for the Big 12. It's just like kind of funny. Top of the league is Kansas. Then there's Baylor, then Kansas State, and Texas Tech, and then the bottom four teams are Iowa State, Oklahoma, Texas, and West Virginia.
I want to mention this. Yeah. Robbie, sorry to cut you off. Like, how mad do you think Kansas fans are? The one team ahead of them is Kansas State. It's like, look, we're glad you guys beat Oklahoma, but like, seriously, we didn't lose to Tulane. We haven't lost yet. We have two road wins.
I said that yesterday. It's like you can say Kansas State can be ranked ahead of you, but I mean, like, why isn't Kansas ranked at all?
Right.
It makes no sense at all. Like, I don't think that most of these fans or the people who are voting are watching. And it makes no sense, because if you put the resume against any other ranked team, I think it compares to it. But yeah, Kansas State, I think, deserves to be ranked over them, because I think they're just a better team. Like, if they were to face right now, like, I think Kansas State would be a 9-point favorite. Is that too crazy
against
to think?
Who?
Kansas.
I would say probably lower than that. I mean, I guess maybe you're right. If Iowa State's 3.5 on the road. If they played that game in Lawrence, I'm not sure where it is this year. I think actually it's going to be in K-State land this year. Let me double check real fast. If they played that, they'll play that game this year in Manhattan. Yeah, I think you're right. You're probably right. Probably 9-10 points. Probably where I would.
Yeah.
I would
so for that reasoning, like, sorry, Jayhawk fans, like, Kansas State should be ahead of you.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no reason Kansas shouldn't be ranked. It's the best story in college football. They should be recognized.
If we win resumes too, like, they've got 2 road wins. They've got 2 Power 5 wins. I know it's not a ton, but also 4 weeks into the season, I think it's 21 teams can say that, and only 3 can say they've won 2 of them on the road. So like, it's,
Also love that SI, they did their bowl projections. Kansas was going to face Alabama in the Sugar Bowl.
Like the Cotton Bowl, I think. It's like a Sugar Bowl. Yeah.
That would be amazing if that happened.
Absolutely,
and also, like, I don't know what the score would be, but oh my God, if I could see Jalen Daniels to score one on Nick Saban. He's screaming at the sideline. That would make my day.
It would be fantastic. It'd be a lot of fun. All right, Robbie, where can people find you and all the work you do and all of its variety and your clever tweets as well?
Awesome. So at the Triano Kid on Twitter, I tweet, and then on SiriusXM, Josh and I do Big 12 today from 2 to 5 Central. It's a good time. We talk sports. We talk about all the things that you listen to on here. It's a fun little time.
Awesome. Robbie Triano, we'll talk to you next week, man.
Awesome. Thank you.